back. Anybody who's still listening, it's week 3. We're still here. What's the name of the show?
House It Hangin'.
Not hanging well.
So I was looking at our statistics, and we have
We've gone backwards.
we have 2
We've
views.
actually lost viewers.
We have 2 views for last week's episode, and one of them was not me.
I actually didn't watch it at all. Like, I posted it, and we were up to 9 immediately.
Yeah.
I thought we were blowing up. And then we immediately went back down to 0. So I don't know if that was the glitch, or if the glitch was corrected, and now we're just at the 2 views or 3 views that we had last week. So
I
we
think
managed...
YouTube added a feature where you can actually unview because it's that bad.
If you waste your time enough,
Yeah.
it just takes it off the scroll for you. So yeah, I was, I mean, whatever, we're still here. This is week 3 of this experiment to see if we can gain any traction, which so far we haven't.
No.
It's actually been a waste of time for everybody, but it's fun, and it gives us a reason to do our Monday calls and sit in this echoey mess, which is getting fixed. The office is coming together.
It is. Maybe we'll take you on a tour. Maybe not.
Don't tease. Don't tease them. It's cool. Like the office, we're finally having furniture. We still don't have anything in here, so it sounds like a concrete jungle. Maybe one day we'll fix the echo. I did promise last week never to mess with the audio again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna fuck it up again.
You messed with the audio.
That's not gonna be great. We got these mics, so until anybody would listen to us, we're not gonna do the big mic. We're just gonna keep the standard little DJI mics that we have here.
What's wrong with Big Mike?
I'm not comfortable with big equipment, Omar.
No. Makes you feel inferior.
It does. Actually, you know what's funny? I was at a game this week, and there was a basketball player. Kristen was playing in the Harlem Wizards thing, and this guy comes up to me and shakes my hand. His name was I think it was Big J, or something like that. And I shook his hand, and his hand wrapped around my dainty little hand, and it made me feel. I sat next to the guy. I mean, another one of her friends' fiancés were there. We both felt like less of men.
Did you feel like an apple being held by a baby?
It was like Andre the Giant in that beer can. Did you ever see the thing with Andre the Giant where he's holding the beer can and it looks like a little
like a
toy?
White Claw.
Yeah. Big J definitely demasculated me without even trying. He alphaed me. I stood up to try to shake his hand too.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Did you just submit?
I got nothing. I got nothing for Big J.
You just looked him dead in the eye. Just, yes, sir, whatever you say.
No, I mean, he didn't know I was even there. He shook my hand. It hurt. I don't want to make it I'm not a bitch, but I am. And soft little hands. He's like, "What? Do you even lift, bro?"
You were like a fly hitting a windshield.
So let's get this train off the tracks. Let's kind of go into anything you want to start at besides the obvious that we're going to get into.
What's the obvious?
I mean, you saw the notes that I have here.
We're going to talk about that?
Actually, this is the tease. This is where we get into it. We tease the audience. We tickle them a little bit. Tickle their fancy. And that's actually, it was funny when we looked at the stats. When we talked about actual real estate stuff,
right?
It dropped. It was an immediate drop. And then it was like, no dumb people, only dumb questions from episode 1.
Yeah.
Skyrocketed back up. So I got to show you that after. But anything you want to, we're going to switch it around this week. We're going to talk about stuff that's coming up now. And then that way at the end, if anybody leaves, when they leave, at least we'll have we'll push our shit out there. So anything you want to talk about this week? If you say no, I'm going to stop.
I love showing up unprepared for these things. Well, it's a little outside of my wheelhouse. Usually I'm interviewing people and I just need to prep, questions to get a conversation brewing. But, now when it's like, I just need to talk, I'm like, It
is different though, right?
Yeah.
Like doing a podcast where like you usually do the interviews, but doing a podcast is not your wheelhouse. So it's almost like it's a completely different forum.
Out of my comfort zone. And I come in stammering and hemming and hawing. And I need to bring something to the table, and I realize that I'm really shallow.
Well, it's good you got notes today.
Yeah, I've got nothing to talk about. I'm just that boring.
Oh, no.
So, put me in a situation. I need like a theme or something.
So I'm thinking maybe we do something with if anybody is listening and you haven't turned it off yet. If you would ever be interested in maybe sitting down and going over your business, like we're not actually trying to sell you anything, we're not trying to make you join the team unless you want to. But if anybody want to join a team or get some info, maybe we sit down with them and go over their actual business and offer somebody something of value.
Yeah, or anybody that's struggling. I know a lot of people are right now. This is quite a challenging time with a lot of the changes that are taking place in light of the lawsuits against the NAR. And
we're going to get into that too. But yeah, like I think I would love to help somebody, like not through nothing else, but just to throw some goodwill out there.
Yeah.
Especially if you watched the video for us here, or the show. Episode's free. So.
And we can tell what time you turned it off at. So if you didn't watch the whole thing, then just...
We'll bring back more dumb people too. At the end, too. So the first thing we're going to get into this week, real estate news. I wish we had like a news sound like news.
We can add it in post cut.
So rates are still high. No sign of dropping. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that? Is that the right way to interview? Just say like, what do you think of that?
It is what it is. We can't change the rates. All you can do is change how you react to the rates. Rates are where they've always been, so there's nothing unusual about it. There's definitely a little bit of a burn, and by a little bit of a burn, I mean a big burn on the effect of the higher rates on top of inflation.
I think it's compounding at this point. Like people have just been kind of position now that they were like, oh, like because this was the year everybody was saying like rates are going to drop. Rates are like it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. Like people are still like, oh, they're holding that hope, but it's like
and they're forecasted to, but again, that's all theoretical and speculative at best. So ultimately, what does that mean if you're in the housing market? If you need to buy a house, buy a house. If you don't need to buy a house, don't buy a house. You know, do it because you need to, not because of what the rates are or aren't.
Brilliant.
I equate it to medication. For example, an EpiPen, if you got any sort of allergies and you have a potential to go anaphylactic, sometimes there's been programs where the EpiPens are free. There's other times where they're upwards of $1,000. Well, if you need it, are you going to figure out a way to obtain it if you need it? Chances are yes. If you don't, then it doesn't matter. It's a moot point, and you just move on to whatever else is relevant in your life.
I think the rates, like, there's no way, and like you or I, we don't know. Mm-hmm. There's no way we can know.
Right.
There's no way anybody.
Don't know. Economists don't know. Any news that you get is just theories and hunches at best. None of it's definitive.
I mean, like for us, like we're pretty busy. Like I like to say busier than average people right now, but the real is like we're still very busy. The housing pricing if it's a good house is still up. Mm-hmm. The rate prices haven't really decreased. People coming through. Like we had open houses with 50 people.
Yeah, there's still plenty of traffic, and that just means that there's still plenty of buyers out there. And one of the things that is going to keep the housing market, number one, not sliding backwards in terms of prices and values, and two, keeping us in a seller's market is a short supply of inventory. There's still not enough houses out there available for people that are looking to buy. So that right there, the simple laws of supply and demand is the more supply you have, the lower prices are. The less supply you have, the higher prices are in relation to demand. So there's low supply, high demand, and that is going to keep prices stable.
It's also going to keep demand high. Because something's got to break, but I don't see it breaking as of yet.
No, I mean, eventually there should be a tipping point when all the people who need to buy a house eventually get one. But just based on what I see from the listing side of things, if I have a house out, it's priced where it should be, and we have 30 offers on it. Okay, well, one person wins and 29 didn't. So those other 29 people that were looking at that one house still need to buy a house. Now multiply that times all the houses that get listed and how many people don't have the winning offer. And there's a monstrous supply of people that still need to buy a house. All these first-time home buyers, people who need larger houses due to family expansion, people who need to downsize because, either they're, retiring and they're trying to simplify things, or it could be a divorce, it could be a death scenario, all sorts of like life changes that really make it more of a have-to type situation versus a want-to type situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, we don't really have any answers for it. We're just kind of, everybody's racing and just going through and doing the best. So, questions, I mean, you definitely want to ask the right questions when going through it. We'll get into those questions in a little bit because I do have some written down. But next thing I want to get into is the DOJ last week or a week and a half. Everybody's already touched on this, so we're definitely late. And by the way, we're not financial advice. We're just two idiots with a camera. And
opinions.
And we're just going to kind of give you our opinion of what the news came through. But the DOJ, they put a proposal out last week. And if you haven't heard, a basic summary is the practice of cooperative compensation in which the listing agent makes an offer of compensation to the buyer's agent in the MLS would become illegal. And also, like, sellers should no longer pay commissions to buyer's agents at all. So a question, after hearing that, I mean, that's obviously like earth-shattering compared to what, it's going to shake a lot of buyer's agents, sellers agents, how they do business.
Sure.
What does it mean first for not the agents, for sellers? And then what does it mean for buyers? So break it down, like, don't, in as high level as possible.
Sure. So a lot of it depends on where the chips officially fall. But right now...
Because it's still a proposal. Nothing's passed yet. We're just kind of bracing.
Right. But what it looks like is going to happen... and there's certain components that I agree with, there's certain components I disagree with, but ultimately change is inevitable, and there's going to be ancillary changes that take place in reaction to the changes being made from the DOJ and like the government level. So right now, traditionally, as part of like the seller's costs, the compensation to the buyer's agent was usually included in part of the seller's costs. And some of the motivation of that is that your typical first-time home buyer is usually scrounging to save up money, and so that down money, even if they qualify for the monthly payment, the down money is usually one of the larger obstacles in between them and first-time home ownership.
I want to stop you for a second. So strictly, just like almost in layman's terms, sellers, is it going to be able to sell their house cheaper? I think that's really what people would care about up front.
No.
Then buyers, is it going to make it more expensive for them to buy a house?
Possibly, depending upon how things fall. So, this is where it comes down to what rules and regulations change in response to any potential changes that are coming on down the line. So, as of right now, this is like a chicken or the egg type question. It's like a scruples type, scenario, and it's really a matter of perception. So, a question that is commonly asked when you have one of the questions that asked is who's really paying the commissions? Because from one perspective, the seller says, well, I am, because it's being deducted from my proceeds.
Makes sense.
But where is the money coming from that's funding the transaction? From the buyer. So when it really comes down to, well, are you looking at the gross or the net amount being paid to the seller? That's where it really needs to be broken down. So as a listing agent, when you're going over the process with the seller, you should be explaining to them what the net is that they're getting. Because if you talk in terms of the net that they're receiving, all this who's paying the commission goes to the wayside. It becomes irrelevant, because at the end of the day, the seller's concerned with what the net is that they're making. So for example, under the traditional historical manners, at least, and specific to New Jersey. Other states may be different, so I'm speaking specific to New Jersey. Let's say and to keep the math simple, let's say you listed a house for $100,000, that's what the sale price was, and let's say the full commission on that property was 6%, which would mean that 6% of $100,000 is a $6,000 total commission. Usually, typically, but not always, that commission would be split 50-50 by the seller's agent and the buyer's agent, so $3,000 each side. So that would be a net payment to the seller of $94,000 after commissions, but before any additional like closing costs, document fees, and whatnot. Now, under the new terms, where the seller may be forbidden from paying the buyer's agent commission, okay, if you're still trying to obtain that $94,000 net, okay, let's say now it's a $97,000 sale price, $3,000 going to the listing agent, and the other $3,000 is now being paid by the buyer's agent. Let's say you just tacked it on to that sale price and you rolled it into the mortgage, assuming that the lender allows it and that all parties sign off on approving that. It's still the exact same thing. It's just a matter of pushing figures across the spreadsheet, but the end is still the same.
You know what this feels like?
What's that?
You know what it feels like to me? Like, you remember Verizon or AT&T when you used to go to upgrade a phone, and you would walk in the door and it's like, oh, I'll take the free one. You just signed a 2-year contract, the free phone.
Yeah.
Now, when you walk in, there is no more free option. You actually pay, but you're paying over time.
Sure.
It's basically just moving money from one side to another side. And kind of what you're saying is like you're kind of changing the balance book. So a $100,000 house in your example, of that $100,000, you might now only get a $97,000 offer because the other $3,000 is going towards the other commission for the other agent who's building that into the offer that they're providing.
Exactly.
So it's going to drive pricing down in theory.
Correct. So one of the things that's being discussed, and I don't know how far down discussion this is that if buyers are now going to be ultimately responsible for their buyer's agent's commission, is that going to be something that's allowed to be rolled into the mortgage? Because if you think about it, all the money that was being used from the purchase is a combination of the buyer's down payment plus the loan amount, okay? The buyer's agent commission was already built into that. So if we're talking about a slightly lower price, but now you're adding a line item, taking it back to the same original gross sale price, again, you're not changing anything. But there is one primary difference to point out, is that the biggest difference, no matter how many times we push these commissions back and forth from buyer side, seller side, the big difference is that the seller is no longer going to have a say in what the buyer's agent commission is. Because at least in New Jersey, when you sign a listing agreement with whatever brokerage you're opting to list your home with, there's a total commission that is negotiated between the listing agent and the seller of the home. And then there's a subsection in the New Jersey listing agreement that shows how much of that is going to go to the buyer's agent. And a point was made that I read about that I wholeheartedly agree with, is that why should a seller pay the buyer's agent who by design is not working to the seller's best interest? The buyer's agent fiduciary responsibility is to the buyer. The listing agent's fiduciary responsibility is to the seller. So I agree with that completely. And that is one way to break that tether of the seller determining what everybody gets paid. Whereas this way now, a buyer's agent can negotiate directly, with their buyer's agent to make sure that it's fair across the board and not determined by the house that they're buying.
But no, so if that was the case, and if you have dual agency, which is still a thing in New Jersey, let's say that, the brokers that we're at right now, let's say that you're selling the house and I got a buyer and I bring them over. We're not necessarily, the brokerage is not necessarily working towards the best interest of your seller, even though we're both under the same umbrella.
So what may happen is that now, and there are other states that already practice this, is that there are some states already, and that have been for a long time, where dual agency, where one agent represents both the buyer and seller. There's states where it's not allowed.
I feel like we're kind of trending that path. It feels like there's a lot of decoupling going on. It feels like everything was bundled.
Yes.
And it feels like the DOJ and the powers that be are starting to try to separate and decouple because they know that real estate's an industry that hasn't really changed a ton as far as the actual agency of selling a house in years.
Yep.
And it's one of the one of the few last remains of things that could be upheld. So I think the great decoupling is coming.
Yeah.
And then, so that leads me to, how does this affect, again, we'll try to keep it high level, a couple things buyer's agents need to be thinking about, and then a couple things that seller's agents need to be thinking about in the next 6 months to get ready for this, and actual tangible things that they can do.
So I think just overall education, before anything, is the laws need to be established, because we don't know how to respond until we know what the new set of rules are.
I think that we got to start the plan, though, because you can't be...
Theoretically, if the commissions are going to be decoupled, where the buyer's agent is going to be directly responsible, if dual agency, where one agent represents two people, is now no longer allowed. Now, dual agency in the sense that one brokerage is still allowed to represent, but you'd have something called designated agency where, let's say, two EXP employees, where EXP is representing both the buyer and the seller, it may be such that you still have to have a different agent for each of the two, even though the one brokerage, because then you're still creating separate agency where there's two separate individuals representing the buyer and the seller separately.
That makes sense. I mean, like if you were an attorney were suing me, I wouldn't hire the same attorney to try to cover me, and they couldn't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They wouldn't have
your
and my best interest in heart.
Right.
You know.
So that piece, I personally have no issues.
I like not doing dual agency because your loyalties are always going to be, you do the best you can, but really you try to play a medium and you wind up not representing anybody.
At the end of the day, people may always be left to wonder, were their best interests truly represented? Even if I know very well that they were, it just leaves
that little seed of doubt that's up there.
It leaves the potential for the opportunity of dissatisfaction from either party. So I stand behind that component of that type of separation, and then this way it just eliminates the possibility of gray areas.
Cool.
So getting back to how should people be preparing? Well, previously,
let's give two things.
Okay.
The buyer's agent should do, and then two things the seller's agent should do.
Well, currently for a seller's agent, because nothing has officially been put into effect, and the changes on the buyer agency end haven't been established yet, is educating sellers that right now, because nothing has officially changed, other than they are allowed to offer zero compensation to a buyer's agent, explaining the pros and cons of doing so. The big con is that
the long con.
the con currently, because no laws have been established, is that a lot of agents representing buyers have not properly been educated themselves on how they need to pivot. And we'll get back to that because right now we're still speaking specifically of sellers. Because the buyer's agents and the buyer's period have not pivoted and laws have not been adjusted yet, because there's a lot of concerns that will need to be addressed if this is enforced, that sellers need to be educated on the current laws. So the current scenario is that the seller has the option of still paying a buyer's commission or not, or paying a reduction or anything in between. So the con of switching to a zero commission, and one thing that I can speak statistically is that right now the houses that are offering zero commission to buyer's agents, the days on market are much higher. That's not my opinion. That is factual. You can pull up any reports and
you're not supposed to do that, but it's human nature. Like if somebody's got, like, as an agent, I don't dictate what I'm going to show by the commission is there. But
and you're not allowed to. But now the buyer's agent commissions used to be hidden information. Now it's open to the general public. So if I have a buyer that knows that they're going to have to pay my commission, if the seller doesn't, they're saying, I don't want to see that house. And that's their choice, not mine.
Yes.
And they're allowed to make that choice because the current laws allow for that.
And that leads us back to buyers. So something buyers agents, I think, need to do that New Jersey's been slow for a lot. Like some people really swear by them, some people don't. But the buyer's agency agreement forms that are out there, it's really important it's more important than ever as a buyer's agent to set yourself apart from being every other buyer's agent. Because everybody, when they come in, the typical lifespan of a realtor is you come in, you get your license. The easiest thing to take on is buyers, because buyers, they don't have to pay you out front. You can take the time, you can run them through appointments, but you don't have to really know much because you can always rely on somebody else to learn how to put an offer in, how to go through that. And then you graduate to start to taking seller listings, and then you graduate to whatever niche you wind up going to, whether it be luxury or 55 plus or a first time home buyer, whatever you graduate to, you tend to wind up there eventually. Buyer's agents, I think, are going to be hit the hardest with this because they don't know. It's not a professional spot when you come out of real estate school. They teach you everything except how to sell a house. You know how many square feet are in a mile, at least in New Jersey. At least you did. I didn't. I don't remember anymore. But the real is like those people are going to be the ones who have to elevate in value and actually show their value up front. Because if I'm signing you and you have the choice, I'm no longer a commodity. It's not just everybody's the same. It's if I'm going to pay a person to do this job and I'm going to think that it's actual money out of my pocket, I'm going to have to find the best one. I'm going to take a little bit more time.
Sure.
And you better be airtight in what you're offering.
Right. And you're right, and I didn't even think about that. That is going to force buyers agents to really step up their game because the buyers themselves are now, the perception at least is going to be that now they've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
And I think if the pieces fall the way that I think they're going to, in that it will be something, and I'm hoping that it will then allow people to roll their buyer's agent compensation into the loan. It absolutely should be, because if it's not allowed to, then that's forcing people that, you know, are in like just lower income demographics. There's a few other scenarios too where the buyer's agent either can't or won't, or really, let's speak in can't situations. Can't, so then does that mean that you're not allowed to be afforded the American dream of home ownership because you're not sitting on enough funds and your lender's not going to, or the law doesn't allow for mortgages to roll it into your mortgage?
So by doing it the way you're saying it, is really, it's not going to change too much as far as like if you have a $100,000 loan, in theory, it would still be a $100,000 loan, just broken off with different line items, because the offers to the sellers would get smaller because you're not, they already knows the sellers are not paying the commission anymore.
Right. So again, it's you're just pushing items across the spreadsheet, but not changing anything in the grand scheme of things.
So hopefully for the buyers, it stays the same. Like they're able to do that because that allows them to continue on it without having to come out of pocket $5,000. And then if you get into the higher price points, it can be, you know, buyer's agents might have to change how they charge the number too. It might have to be flat rates. It might have to be different numbers or percentages. Or
so I was watching something about I was watching somebody speak regarding buyer's agents charging an hourly rate versus a
what's the rate? What's the rate they usually charge?
Well, the rate didn't make a difference, but what they're looking at was the scruples. Like it was more like a scruples type.
You've used the word scruples a lot. Is that like the Yahtzee word of the week or something? Like
it is.
Wait, go on. Like, so what do you mean by scruples?
Well, a lot of this is a lot of what's going on right now because the laws haven't been solidified and official changes haven't been made. Right now, we're talking a lot of theoretical situations because we don't know what the end result is going to be.
That's why we just worry and we sit here and we worry and we're anxious and nobody knows and we just make up full podcast episodes about nothing.
And it's a horrible place to be in, not knowing what the rules are. I mean, we know what our current rules are, but this is temporary right now until something more definitive happens. And with all that sidebar, I completely lost sight of what your original question was.
I was thinking about the scruples of what's coming up. What do you think of that? Scruples. I'm just going to use that word. I'm going to use that word the rest of the day.
So we were talking about buyer's agency, buyers being... so as of right now, buyers cannot roll the buyer's agent commission into a mortgage. So let's say, for example, you have a VA buyer and they want to see a house that offers a 0% commission. That means that their buyer's agent is not going to get paid because according to VA terms, they're not allowed to pay a buyer's agent commission. So that's a problem for vets that want to use their VA loan benefit. It's a big problem. These were government employees, and now they're going to be stuck in a situation where what do they do? Now with like these new laws, like that would currently mean
proposed laws. They're not official yet. But like I said, we're just trying to ponder the ideas of like what are some things you can start to do. So I think buyer's agents definitely should lock down their value chart of what they're offering the person. It's not just, hey, I'm going to help you find a house. Lock down exactly what you do and get really good at it.
Oh, I remember what we lost sight of is charging an hourly rate. Oh. So let's say you have a transaction or you just go out and view house after house after house after house after house. That happens in a seller's market. So now that buyer's agent commission can be driven through the roof. Because remove what the hourly rate proposed is. I'm sure that would be negotiable if
I'm going to charge a house
allowed. Yeah, but every hour spent. Because think about and what the public doesn't see is how many hours behind the scenes that we're working on transactions. They don't know like the hours spent searching, the hours driving around.
Like that's your job. Like they look at it like that's your job. Like we don't look at like plumbers or electricians of what they go through. How many times they've been electrocuted. Like everybody has these things that go through it. But the truth is like we work, stop working my 9 to 5 so I can work all day, 24/7.
Sure. And think about an attorney perspective. There's attorneys that charge, they bill out every minute of work that they do. Then there's others that charge flat rates for particular tasks. When something's done hourly, there's no ceiling on what those charges are going to be. So is that helping or hurting the buyers?
I mean, it's depends on how they want to look at it. I mean, like if you're really like if they're serious about looking and you build it in like an either or situation, like I said, it's all going to come down to, because if you're not a good buyer's agent, if you're just like a normal buyer's agent, they're not going to pay you anymore. You're going to have to start to value yourself enough to come up with what you offer somebody.
You're going to be better. It will force you to have to be better.
It'll put you, riches are in the niches. Like you're going to have to find a niche that you're very, very good at. Find a certain person that you help out over and over again and become the go-to for that. If you're not willing to do that, you're going to be out of work. You're going to be out of the business. And there's not much else you can do. Like the business is going to change.
It's already changing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in flux as we speak.
So kind of wrapping things up. So not wrapping the show up, but wrapping up that section. We're going to get into a little bit of what cold outreach. So cold outreach, there's a couple different ways you could reach out to cold people, and we're going to talk about the difference between like cold outreach and some social media. Very high level. We're going to get more into it if this show continues past.
Is it going to be a level 3 discussion?
I would say it's going to be a high level overview. Is what they
level 4. I need to know what level meeting this is going to be.
I mean, can I post it on Facebook and let people know about it?
Maybe. If you didn't post it, it didn't happen.
It's very true. We love Facebook, we love social media, but it's used in different ways. So some of the differences between, I'm going to ask you because I'm a marketing nerd. I love marketing stuff. I'll talk about it, and like people just stop listening after a while, which is cool. I get it, and like I can tell when they're done, but I'm going to continue for a little bit more, and then I'll stop.
You're really stubborn.
I am. But so the layman term, what do you think most people think the difference between cold outreach and social media postings are? Do you think there is a tangible difference that they think, or do you think it's mostly people are like, oh, that's all the same thing?
So cold outreach is going to be someone who has no idea who you are, what you are. It's literally like walking down the street and grabbing a stranger and saying something to them, presenting something to them. That's to me is how I perceive cold outreach. Social media marketing, if you're marketing to followers, if you're literally saying anything, someone had to deliberately hit a follow button to follow you on social media.
Cool.
So that makes them not cold.
Well, I mean, you nailed it. And like, what the big difference is, if you go up on a social media post and you're talking and somebody knows who you are, if we already have a relationship, you can say things to me that somebody that I have no idea who they are wouldn't be able to get away with, and I honestly wouldn't care if they said stuff. So cold outreach, the funniest thing that I see on cold outreach, especially on Facebook and Instagram, I'm going to ask you because I talk to you about this all the time. Yeah. What do you think I'm going to say?
Regarding cold outreach?
What do you think I think is the thing that I see the most for cold outreach, the biggest mistake that I see?
So cold outreach, so not on social media.
It's on social, but it's like paid advertisement or somebody that doesn't know you.
Okay, so paid advertising. That's different.
Yeah, like paid cold outreach is paid advertising.
Right, because if you're posting to your channel, it's not cold outreach.
They know who you are. Exactly.
Okay, so Facebook advertising is having no purpose. Number one, to what you're paying, like just advertising your website, period. But that's not enough. It's like that's advertising. That would be like advertising like a random address on the street without showcasing, well, what's at that address? Like, why should I even care about that address?
Why do I care?
Exactly. And two, the big mistake is not speaking to somebody specific or not speaking to a specific scenario. It's just throwing generalities out there, like just posting a phone number out there. Well, if you don't give people
call me if you're thinking about buying or selling.
Yeah.
Like, does that get you going? Like, does that be like, oh, this guy, like, now that I got to pay you a buyer commission and I'm going to pay you hourly, I'm going to be like, oh, call. You said to call him.
Yeah.
If he's thinking about buying or selling. Like, that's the worst proposition. So I'm going to get on a soapbox here I'm already on a soapbox, so it's kind of short. But cold outreach, the thing I see is like, if you look at it like in a bar, if you go up and you're going to talk to somebody you don't know at a bar, what's the thing that you would not lead with? All your awards, All like, what? Hey, Tom Cassidy, here's my number, here's my name. If you're thinking about buying or selling, like I know nothing about you. I don't know if you're thinking about buying or selling.
Just handing someone your phone number and then walking away.
Yeah,
like mic drop.
That would actually
Here's
be
my
better.
card.
That would actually be better than half the stuff we see on there. So I think the one thing that I don't want to, again, go too deep. If people want help with this, let us know. But the thing I want to do is like decide the rule of one. So any post that you're going to post to people who don't know who you are, think of one person you're trying to help with one idea and then one call to action on there.
So like one problem that could potentially exist for a person that you would be the key to solving that problem of.
And then why is it important to them? Mm-hmm. Like what's in it for them? Like don't lead with Tom Cassidy, I sold 10,000 houses last week. Like nobody cares. I'm not hiring anybody. But when there's a problem, then they become immediately, like if you're having a problem and this person's like, hey, listen, like this is what I do. I help this type of person. Mm-hmm. If you know anybody, let me know. They're like, I was thinking I actually need help with that.
So instead of just going out and having people check tape on me, I should say, if you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it.
Check out the hook.
While Tom revolves it. Because our homes are nice, baby.
All right, easy there, Rip Van.
Do you hate me right now?
Rip Van Winkle. Actually, anytime you could drop a vanilla ice drop without and actually have it somewhere in here, I'm in for it. So that's, I mean, like the rule of one, I think is the one thing that everybody has to, the one thing everybody has to reach out and think about is who are you talking to? What matters to them? So they don't care about you until you can interrupt what they're already talking about, what they're having a problem with. You know, if you're a guy that cuts down trees and you go up, you're like, hey, I just chopped down a bunch of trees. Nobody cares. But if you have a tree that's going to hang over your house and now it's becoming an imminent threat, you immediately care more about what that guy's going to do because it's already in the process.
There's a need for the service.
You're already looking for it. So you want to be the person in the way, like that solves the problem when they need it to be, which is not always immediate.
And another way to think about it is, let's say you're meeting somebody for the first time or not, okay? But let's say you are meeting somebody for the first time and they're just rambling on and on and on about themselves. It's narcissistic behavior, somebody with low self-esteem. It's a huge turnoff. So why would you operate that way from a business standpoint? If you're trying to attract people, don't do things that are known to push people away and turn them off. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make with their marketing. It's like me.
What's in it for the person you're trying to talk to? If they don't, like, if there's nothing in there that says anything to them, don't post it, especially if it's cold.
Yeah.
If it's warm and you know the person's there, you could throw stuff out there, but still, I'm a big person of, give, and then ask. Mm-hmm. Like, don't just keep asking for stuff because you run out of goodwill real quick.
Right.
You become the guy who, if you're going to move a grand piano up a stairs, you don't go to the person that asks everybody else for every problem. You go to the person who you have the most in the bank with. You're like, listen. And actually, the longer the pause in between the listen or the ask, the bigger the ask is going to be. So that's one thing. If you're interested in something like that, if you want to kick ideas around on cold outreach offers, social media stuff, please leave a comment, leave something so we know that you guys want to see this. Or if you don't care, you could be like, hey, just flip us 2 birds on the bottom and I'll never talk about cold outreach and nerd out again. So
speaking of social media, TikTok.
So that was actually my next. So platforms, did you ever notice the difference? So if I have a piece of content and you posted it, did you ever see the meme where it's like who I am on Facebook, who I am on Tinder, who I am on LinkedIn, who I am on whatever?
Yeah.
So I was thinking the same thing this week on different advertisements because we have an ad that went it's not full viral, semi-viral. 15 seconds. It was on TikTok, which I don't get TikTok, but I want you to go into a little bit the difference between TikTok and then Instagram, because Instagram was less successful. Same ad, just less successful.
Right.
And then Facebook was non-existent with the same ad. So who are the audiences for each one and then how to scale? Like, I would just say the big 3, like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
So to give you my background, I am Facebook years old. And that's where I have the most natural, organic friend group. And So typically, if I want the most traction on something, it's going to get it on Facebook. Why? Because over 15 years now, I think, I've been attracting people that apparently must hear when I want to hear what I have to say.
But it's all dad jokes.
Yes, nothing but
dad jokes and bad puns.
Exactly, big puns. I'm not a player. I just joke a lot, but. Instagram, I made the shift to because I realized that there's a space that I should exist in and wasn't. I started my Instagram account maybe about a year ago, and it's been a little bit of a slow burn because I am not Instagram years old. I am parent to the Instagram generation from an age perspective. Then there's TikTok. I probably missed the boat on Instagram, and now with TikTok, well, I don't want to say it's new, but it's newer to me. I've been on there about like 6 months. It makes no sense to me, but I know that it's a space that I need to exist because the world is evolving. I need to evolve with it. I don't want to be one of these dinosaurs that's still asking for people to, fax documents over to me. I'm not going to be that guy. So Tom and I have been trying to crack codes on things, and I would say that our natural format is probably long form, like YouTube length type stuff. We can fill a half an hour.
I'm better on radio because my face is really meant for radio.
But we're probably better suited for long format. We're good filling a good 20, 30 minutes of time. I can filibuster sometime. And maybe I'm a little too overly selective to try and whittle something down to 5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. But in the ADHD generation, which is alive and flourishing, and we're engulfed in it, trying to get content down to 30 seconds, a minute was a struggle for me. Then my next goal was 30 seconds. So I just released my first 15-second video of a house tour. And within a day or so of it, it got over 1,000 views within the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We're at about 5,000 views now over the course of maybe 2-3 days.
But more important than views, comments. People are actually engaging with the content and asking questions, because likes aren't sales, likes aren't calls, likes aren't anything.
But it is a precursor, because no likes is just the absolute, and no views. So it's like views, likes.
Like this podcast.
Engagement, and then there's other metrics like, shares, forwards, reposts. And there was, I want to say about 5 shares, 5 reposts. So people liked it enough to then take it and repost it on their channel. So that to me was a big success, because it's the first time that I've had a video, first time recently that I've had a video do that, of something that completely went against every grain in my body in creating, which was just whittling something down to 15 seconds. But you know what? I took a leap of faith and I just whittled it down to under 15 seconds. I think it was 14.5. And it got more traction than most other things that I posted. And I felt like there was zero creativity in it other than just making it short. And then there were some certain basic things that I did, which, there was verbiage in it, and I was messing around with keywords and things of that nature. But honestly, I just shrunk it down to 15 seconds. And I still can't understand why, but I'm not going to question it. I'm going to attempt to replicate it, because I don't care about the why. I care about the what.
Let's get it on then. Anybody that sees this, because we're probably going to release this on Wednesday. Anybody that sees this, how many videos are you going to do in the next week? Give me a number you're going to commit to. And I want to see, and we're going to go back and look at the numbers next week.
Okay. So videos on
TikTok. What are you going to release? You're going to release give me 2 or 3 TikTok videos you're going to release just to see if we can't crack the code.
So this particular one was a house tour. So I had a reason for it. In other panels that I've sat on, discussions with mostly realtors, but it could be people in any industry, there's a lot of people that swear by having schedules of posting. I'm not there yet. If I post something, I have to have a reason behind it. It can't just be throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks. Maybe with formatting of things, but even if I'm going to throw shit at the wall, I have to have a reason to throw shit. I'm not like a rhesus monkey just randomly grabbing and just. So
that should be a podcast.
My life is a Reese's monkey. Or throwing my Reese's Pieces.
So give me a number. Are you going to commit to 2?
Sure.
Commit to 2. Let's see what the numbers, and we're going to compare and see if you can crack the code.
Yeah.
And then we'll share with everybody, wink,
Yeah.
that's still here.
Is it okay if it's not real estate related?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want you to crack the code. I want your number. I want numbers, and I want comments more than views. Mm-hmm. Likes more than views, but views are not nothing.
Right.
So we'll go through and we'll mess with it next week. So one segment that I'm going to continue to go with, because it seems like it spikes up every time we do it, is what pisses us off this week or what grinds our gears, because people seem to like negativity. People love to hear like what's driving you crazy. So I'm going to throw this to you. If you want to answer first, great. If not, I always have a long litany of things.
Why don't you kick this off? Because like I'm at peace with the world.
See, you haven't had enough coffee, and it hasn't been Monday long enough today while we're recording this. So you don't have to have something that's driving you crazy, and don't make something up just for the sake of it. But my thing is gurus who pitch guru ideas with minimal knowledge or competency in said field. This is not real estate related. Mm-hmm. This is not business related. This is just overall, everybody is a coach right now. Sure. So tired of everybody being a coach and a mentor and somebody like that. And if you are not successful in what you do, don't start teaching it. Like, don't become.
Wait, but I thought the old cliche was those that can't teach.
It is, but they usually teach gym. That's the reason. Like, they're teachers. They teach gym. The problem with ours is like you'll become an agent, and 2 months later you've done 2 transactions. You're like, well, now because now you're a Circle of Excellence winner, mm-hmm. because. Not to knock those awards, but like you can be on a team and be like, well, now I'm a part of a Circle of Excellence, which is great. Everybody loves those awards. They're fantastic. But like you are not a guru. Actually, there's no law of being a guru. You gotta do this for a long enough time, and you have to actually have knowledge. But what I think what it is like the people who you know are not successful, you're starting to see like them give out advice on things.
Sure.
And the people who don't know any different are going to follow that advice and then fail because they have no choice but to fail.
They're following the wrong lemming right off the cliff.
And I have no problem if you have a skill and you want to teach it and you've mastered that skill, but be very, very aware of who you're looking to for knowledge, because fake gurus are everywhere.
So I can't give out advice on my alabaster skin not burning?
You can't. Like
Why
just
not?
like I can't give advice on haircuts. Like nobody would listen to me.
Well, one haircut.
Like one. I got one note and I hammer it. So is there anything that pops to your mind, or are you just at peace now?
I'm at peace.
Rookie. Get mad. So before we wrap up this shit show, anything come up this week? I know we talked about stuff in the beginning. Anything you want to promote this week? Talk about. Don't say we're going to have houses listed or sold. What else can we talk about to get people in for the week, or we're excited about?
Honestly, anybody that needs help on anything, I know we mentioned this earlier, but
how should they get in touch? So do you want me to tag our phone number, our email? Do you want me to just say, hey, comment below and
mash that like button, share and repost? My phone number's everywhere. My email address is everywhere.
I want to make it easy. So if people are there, if you are interested, just drop your email in the comments, or just throw a thumbs up or some way that we can get in touch with you, and we're happy to sit down, talk with you, go over offers, go over like what you're doing, and come up with some strategy ideas, right?
Just leave the best way to reach out to you.
And there's no hooks. We're not promoting. We're not recruiting.
We're not selling anything.
It's really just to put goodwill out in the world and help out anybody who needs it. So before we end this, we got a new section. Dad joke of the week. I know you probably don't have to think too hard. Mm-hmm. I wrote one down. Do you want to launch this, or you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Tequila may not fix your life, but it's worth a shot.
So I've got a really bad one. Why do cops smell? Because they're on duty.
Boom. With that, we have nowhere to go but down for this. So see you next week.